Hi, hello, namaste. In my last video, I shared how I moved to Windsor after buying a home. So I thought, let me have a conversation with my buyer's agent who helped me answer a lot of questions. Stay tuned. Hey Harsha, thanks for
Naren.
joining.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your time. So this is Harsha, my buyer's agent, now a very close friend of mine who helped me buy the house. So we are gonna answer a few questions that comes into our minds while buying a house. So Harsha, tell me how it all started, man.
Yeah, I would be more than happy to guide everyone out there who is going to buy a house. Now, you remember like you wanted to move to Windsor and then you called Aditya and Aditya introduced Naren to me. And then I just asked him like the pretty straight questions like what are your must-haves? Why do you want to buy a house in Windsor? What are your must-haves? What are your love to haves? What are your dream to haves? And is this your investment property? Is this your first time buying a home? How much down payment do you have? And when I gathered, Naren answered all the questions, and based upon his answers I could understand what his requirement is, and then I started showing him the properties.
Perfect. So now when somebody wants to buy a home, maybe these are the things that they would want to keep in mind before talking to an agent, right?
Yeah, that's right. Every buyer should know what they want, and if they are unsure they can ask the realtor to give options. See, I have this friend of mine who called me recently and he said he wants to buy a house. I asked him the same questions. He doesn't have a queue. Then I asked him like how his family situation is, how his job situation is. That way I gave him an option that if you buy such a house for yourself, it'll be good for you for the next 5 years.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Harsha, the second question that comes into my mind is, this concept called 5% down payment, 20% down payment. So what do you think are the pros and cons in each of those scenarios?
Well, that's a very good question which every buyer should know. If someone is putting 5% down in here, you can buy a house with as low as 5% down, but that home should be your principal residence, primary residence. You cannot buy an investment property with 5% down. So if you are buying an investment property, the down payment should be at least 20% down. So many people have this thought that I'll buy a house for 5% down and give it for rent. Yeah, but the bank doesn't allow to do that.
So can somebody buy a house 5% down, but they can buy a duplex house and live in one and rent out the other?
That's another good point. That's where the duplexes and properties with a legal unit in the basement, those kind of properties help the first time home buyers, because when someone is buying with 5% down payment, they are paying high mortgages in this market especially. So in such a scenario, if someone has a second unit which can share the cost, offset the expenses, then that's a deal breaker.
Do you know why is Windsor on the rise when it comes to these kinds of homes?
Because the best part of Windsor is affordability, and another best part is its close proximity to the states, to Detroit. And in Windsor we are having this Stellantis battery plant coming up, and the new bridge construction is also halfway through, and that will bring more immigrants. And also if someone is buying to invest in Windsor, then this is a good place, because University of Windsor has a satellite admission office in India, so they are giving admission to international students from India.
So there's always an influx of students coming in.
That's right.
Who would need student rentals.
And also with the federal government allowing international students to work for 40 hours, the options have increased for the students, which is an opportunity for the investors.
Lucky students. While buying a house and somebody is new to it, there are so many things like listing price, selling price, comparables. Can you share one or two things about each of those, please?
Yeah, listing price is something which the seller chooses by with the inputs from his agent, because as a realtor we give the option to the sellers to list it at the market value or lower than the market value, so that you can grab some eyeballs, or over the market value at what the sellers are expecting. it's at the end it's their choice what they want to list it for. But as a buyer agent, I look at the comparables in the last 30 days, last 60 days, what kind of similar kind of properties, what they sold for, and what could be the probable sale price, market price of this one. And I make sure that my clients stay within the market value so that they are not in a tight spot.
Perfect. So people should go with comparables, not just
Exactly.
listing price, thinking the selling price will be too much over asking or too less over asking.
Yeah,
It's the comparables that matter. So you work with people who are outside of Windsor who are looking to buy or purchase a property, and also with people within Windsor. So how do you plan your work, or how does that work management take place?
Well, whether it is an in-town buyer or out-of-town buyer, I always ask them to give me sufficient time, because sometimes properties that may suit his requirement, they may be tenanted. Some properties tenants want 24 hours notice before someone can go there to see the house. So I ask for sufficient time, and when I go to the house and show them the property, if it is an out-of-town buyer, I do a video tour, and then I highlight the points, like this roof could be like it is worn out, the roof is at the end of its life, the furnace it's in a bad shape, or sometimes many of the houses, you remember, they had knob and tube. So when such things come up, that's a red flag. I ask my buyers to get it inspected, and whether they go for it or not, it's their choice. But that's one thing. And that the same thing happens for the in-person tours also. When I'm showing the property to the buyer, even then they may miss so many things because they are new to this process.
Absolutely.
So I highlight those things and tell them, hey, see, looks like that's galvanized plumbing, better get this house inspected.
Yeah, sometimes all the 4K digital cameras versus we going and doing a actual video of how actually the house looks, there's a lot of difference, right?
Exactly. You need to have a professional who can identify these, because out there are so many videos, marketing videos are available which may not highlight these.
Absolutely. Awesome. So these were the questions for this video, but I'm sure we have other questions as well which will be answered in our next one. So stay tuned for our next videos.